Welcome to Coast, people. We are delighted to have as our guest today Glynis Barber, best known as ITV's most glamorous detective in Dempsey and Makepeace. She's at the Nuffield Theatre in Southampton in a brand new comedy that's moving on, hopefully, to the West End. Directing her, Ned Sherrin, master of satire and wit, a show business legend in his own time, and that should be worth a bob or two, no less. And Cynthia Jacobs, now she is the brains behind this fabulous doll's house. Now, each room has been designed and furnished by a famous personality, and it's on tour around the country to raise money for sick children. Right, Cynthia Jacobs, let me start with you. This whole idea of this magnificent doll's house to raise money for the Sick Children's Trust was yours. Did you have a doll's house when you were a girl?
Oh, yes. I've always loved doll's houses.
A big, ornate job like this or not?
No, a small one I could carry around from room to room with me.
Let me put the same question now to Glynis Barber. Glynis, did you have a doll's house?
No, alas, I did not.
You didn't have a doll's house?
No.
Poor deprived child.
No, I had a Barbie doll and all her accoutrements, and I think she may have had a little house, but I can't quite remember,
A sort of
actually.
cardboard job or
she had
something
a
like
boyfriend and a sister and lots of clothes.
But nowhere to live?
I'm sure there was something, but I can't remember what it was. But no, I never had a traditional doll's house.
Right. And Ned Sherrin, presumably you didn't have a doll's house
No,
either?
toy theatre, I think, for me. First of all, one made out of shredded wheat boxes, and then I graduated. I was given a proper one with a nice swish blue curtain, I seem to remember. Jack and the Beanstalk was my first production.
That's splendid.
But there's still time for both of us.
Yes.
Right, Cynthia, now let's look in more detail at this lovely doll's house and look at some of the rooms, with additional comments, hopefully, from Glynis and Ned. Let us start with the living room, designed by Sir Clement Freud. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, he wanted red silk on his settee, which we managed to get. I asked him if he played cards because I had a card table. He said he preferred backgammon because that's gambling. I also had the champagne and 2 glasses donated, so he said he'd be very happy to have that in his room.
He's got red silk in his box at Ascot. He's got a permanent box at Ascot. It's got a great sort of, looks like a pasha's tent inside. I don't know what goes on there.
So that's why he wanted red silk. Oh, right, that's lovely.
Right, moving on now to the hall. This was designed by Peter Baldwin, the actor, alias Derek Wilton, in Coronation Street.
Yes, he wanted a family hall. He's got a daughter who kicks her shoes off everywhere. And he also sent me the small photograph of his wife who died a couple of years ago. He particularly wanted that in his hall.
Really? And
yes.
He's got a great interest, hasn't he, in doll's houses?
Oh, that's right. And toy theatres, because, of course, he runs Pollock's Toy Theatres in Covent Garden in London.
Right. Now, the kitchen, designed by cookery expert Delia Smith.
Yes. She wanted something very much the same as she has in her own kitchen, the Aga, the pine furniture, the flagstones. So
I did her on through the keyhole, and I got her house. There was an easy clue, because her 2 interests in life are cooking and religion.
Yes.
And so it was an easy one to crack.
And can you more or less recognise that kitchen there?
I think, as you were saying, it's difficult to get modern miniature furnitures, and her
Yes.
kitchen looked a bit sort of swisher, more modern, but that's very pretty, though.
yes, she asked for pine.
The music room, we're moving up to now, Judi Dench, the actress.
Yes. Well, she has a doll's house of her own and didn't have room for a music room in that. So she's fulfilled her dreams in our doll's house.
Glynis, what do you think of it? Is it the sort of room you'd like in your ideal house?
Well, I don't know if that... I mean, I think it's beautiful, but it's not something that I would choose, because it's something I simply don't relate to, really, not playing any musical instrument whatsoever. But I think it's very pretty.
Right. Children's room, Jane Asher, the actress. And photos of pop stars on the walls.
Yes, she wanted a very modern room, a room that children could really be happy and play in. I think she's got children of her own.
No photograph of Paul McCartney, I noticed.
I didn't. No, we have Philip Schofield, who's very popular with the youngsters.
I believe, yes.
All right, moving up to the top story now, and we've got our attic office cum hi-fi room, designed by Bob Willis, the cricketer.
That's right.
The cricket bat and ball there, giving it all away.
Yes, apart from the fact he's never owned a cricket bat in his life. being
he
a
not?
bowler, you see.
Right, yes.
So, but I did say we had to have somewhere to stick the ball.
So you took a bit of a liberty there.
Yes, I took a bit of a liberty there.
I think that's forgivable.
And he's also a Bob Dylan fan, which is why we have the Bob Dylan records for him for his hi-fi.
Right, OK. Moving across the top floor there, we come to the attic den. Ernie Wise designed that one. A photograph of him and Eric Morecambe right at the back of the room there.
Yes.
Anything else we should know about that one?
No, it's just he wanted a room where he could write his plays, and oh, and when I saw him at London, he did say the one thing missing was a wig stand with a wig on. So I have provided one. There is one in the house now.
What's that little basket work thing in the corner?
Oh, that's his picnic hamper.
What do you reckon, Ned?
It's charming and it's appropriate that it's the sort of the least high room in the house, isn't it? Don't know how Bob Willis manages.
No,
He's frightfully tall on the other
6'8",
side.
I believe.
I like the idea of the wig stand there. I must invest in one of those myself. Moving down to this very splendid bathroom, which was the creation of Christopher Timothy, the actor.
That's right. I hadn't intended to have a bathroom in the house originally. We'd only planned to use 6 rooms, but he sent me pages of beautiful cut-out magazine pictures of how he wanted his bathroom. So, of course, we had to do our best for him.
Yes, he's come a long way. He was in the Virgin Soldiers for me. He's come a long way since then. I don't think he could have afforded that bathroom.
No, I doubt
You know,
he
a
could
few
have.
of us could actually. Bathrooms always cost a fortune, don't they?
Yes. But
Very
I think
nice.
we managed to get everything he wanted in there.
Right. Well, Ned, you've said you've actually been on Through the Keyhole, so now we are going to play on the last room a game of Through the Keyhole.
No, you have to say through the keyhole.
Well, I
Don't
can't...
forget, it's over to you, David. That extraordinary mixture of accents you get from that boy.
I can't do the accent, but we are looking at a bedroom, obviously, and I'll give you some clues here. The clues, perhaps, are the theatrical posters on the wall, a glass of Guinness on the bedside table, and American newspapers on the floor. Does that help you as we go through?
Is it someone who lives in England?
It's someone who, most of the time, when he's not working in America or places like that, would...
But he is an American.
No, he's not actually an
I thought
American.
it might be Michael Brandon, you see. It's a big bed.
He doesn't drink Guinness.
It's someone, Ned, I feel that you really ought to recognise.
David Putnam.
No, he was, in a sense, almost discovered by you, Ned.
David Frost.
No, no.
Michael Crawford. Who did I discover?
Absolutely right,
Michael
Michael
Crawford.
Crawford.
Who is it?
Yes. Anything you want to tell us about that bedroom?
Well, he was very particular about what we put in there. I sent samples of miniature wallpaper over to Los Angeles so he could choose his own wallpaper. And, I mean, I did tell him we had white paint in the doll's house, but no, he wanted cream paint, so I had to paint all the sketching boards cream.
Always a perfectionist, little
That's
Michael.
right, it is. And, I mean, he sent me a whole list of the things he wanted. He wanted the American newspapers. So we had them miniaturised in America and flown over here.
Lovely.
So that we could put
It's a
them in his
lovely
room.
room, actually. Very
Yes.
nice, yes.
And he wanted a pair of brown leather mules. So we had those made specially for him.
It's amazing. And we should say the house is in fact on tour now. It can be seen in all sorts of places, including Bewley
Yes.
this coming Friday.
We should be at Bewley on Good Friday, the Motor Museum.
Right. The actual raffle itself, when the winner discovers whether he or she has won this, is at the New Forest Dolls House and Miniatures Fair at Lyndhurst in October.
That's right.
How much do you hope to make?
I hope to make at least £30,000 over the period. We are doing a commemorative booklet as well, which we should be selling to help raise funds.
Does Edward have miniature cars? Because you could have miniature cars outside the house.
What,
couldn't
from
you?
Bewley?
From
Yes,
Bewley,
yes.
yes.
What a good idea.
Yes, I don't know whether he's got any miniature
Have a
cars.
few miniature Rolls outside.
Yeah, that would be very
We're
nice.
obviously not allowed to plug these things, but raffle tickets are available.
They
aren't
are available, yes, and I want to sell as many as I possibly can and have a reprint, hopefully.
I think you deserve to as well. We shall talk again a little bit later, and thank you for showing
Thank
us this lovely, lovely house. Glynis Barber, let's talk to you now, not about dolls' houses or anything else, but let's talk about Same Old Moon at the Nuffield Theatre in Southampton until the 28th of April. First of all, what's it all about?
Well, it's a new play in that it's never been done in this country. I think it's been done in various other places, but for all intents and purposes, it's a brand new play, which is always exciting to do. And it's also a very good play, I think, and very charming play, and it's an absolutely wonderful part for an actress.
Tell us about your part, can you?
Well, it goes into flashback, so basically I have to play a whole range of ages, starting with about 9 and going up to about 40. It was quite alarming at first. When I first read the script, I nearly didn't go up for the interview, actually.
Why, because of the...
Yes, I wasn't sure. You know, I thought, I don't know if I'm right for this. I wasn't at all sure. And she also has to have an Irish accent, which I'd never done in my life before.
What's her Irish accent like, Ned? Is it...
Very good.
Yes?
Very good indeed. And she's surrounded by half a dozen terribly good Irish actors, and I think you get some of it by osmosis, but a lot of it she gets by hard work, and it's very convincing.
Oh, yes, I have to admit, before I started rehearsal, I've never worked so hard before I've actually started a rehearsal.
Yeah.
So I did have to work terribly hard. Yes, I wasn't at all sure, because also the style of the writing is very economical. And in particular, my part. A lot of things happen to her, and often she doesn't say very much, which is quite daunting, because you know that you just have to be the person for every second. It's almost easier when you talk. When you don't talk, you have to fill all those moments. And that sort of frightened me.
You see, we know you didn't have a doll's house as a child. You also apparently didn't have a bike, but you have to ride a bike in this production. Has that been a problem?
Well, yes, I have a scene where I have to ride this bike round stage. And I don't do it terribly well. I kept falling off the stage and riding into the set. So in the end, Ned said, well, look, just put your feet on the ground, pedal like this, and just pedal for the last few.
She'll be entering for the Tour de France by the time we finish the run.
Yeah. But no, I never had one as a little girl. I wasn't allowed one, because we lived near a busy road. And
right. Yeah.
So, yes, I'm not... And balancing is not one of my strong points anyway. I mean, I'm not very good on my heels. I have to do this dance in heels. I mean, there's nothing I don't have to do in this play.
Right.
A ballet, a Madison in heels, and I keep tottering over and falling into the actor next to me.
You see, you've had a wide variety of stage and screen roles, but like it or not, in many people's minds, you are going to be associated, I suspect, for some time, with the role of Harriet Makepeace, the very glamorous detective in ITV's Dempsey and Makepeace. Did you enjoy it at the time? Oh, yes. It was a great opportunity, and changed my life, really. But is it something you're now trying to leave behind you? Are you trying to... Well, yes, for the simple reason that I finished doing it, quite a number of years ago now, and, I want to be believed in other things and be associated with other things. But it takes time, yes, to get away from something. Where are you happiest? Are you happiest on the stage, being directed by the likes of Ned Sheridan, or are you happiest in multi-million-pound epics, which I know you've done, for instance, the one with Anthony Perkins, the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? Oh, I don't know if it was multi-million. not judging from my salary, anyway. But I love the theatre. I absolutely love it. I mean, it's nerve-wracking. I don't know why I love it, but I just do. I feel very at home in the theatre. But on the other hand, I think anything that's stimulating and anything that's challenging and has a good script and a good director is good to do, and it doesn't really matter where it is. But at the end of the day, I must say, I do have a soft spot for theatre. And presumably hoping for a nice long West End run with Same Old Moon. I really hope it goes into the West End, because I think it's a marvellous play, and I think it deserves to go in, and it would be a wonderful opportunity to go into the West End with it, so I really hope it does. Can I ask you a very personal question? Well, all right. What's it like working with Ned Sheridan? Well, quite daunting, really. Yes, one has to have one's wits about one. Yes, it's quite challenging. I think you got out of that rather well, actually. Yes, I did, didn't I? Same question to you, Ned Sheridan. I mean, how difficult is it directing a play with the likes of Glynis Barber and indeed Julia Foster in it? It really depends on sort of two things. I think it's the quality of the play, and this play by Geraldine Aron is a tremendously original and warm and funny piece, I think. And then it depends on the quality of the actors, because I prefer to think of directing as editing rather than directing. I mean, if you've got the right material and the right people, then hopefully you just sit back and try and guide them
to choices, which they will usually offer you a variety of opportunities, because they're all, both Julia and Glynis and Gay Brown and the tremendous cohort of Irish actors are all very offering actors, and so what one tries to do is guide them to make the right choices out of the hundreds that they can throw up in different ways of doing a scene.
Producer, director, playwright, author, presenter, and member of the board of the All England show jumping course at Hickstead, where you are.
It keeps one off the streets.
Because you are a bit of a sports lover, aren't you? I mean, a failed sportsman, I believe.
Yeah,
Kind?
Totally failed, yes. I did once win the mile at school in the slowest time ever recorded for somebody to actually win it. Hickstead is just simply because I'm a friend of Douglas Bunn's, and he likes to have a board of people who know nothing about it, so they don't contradict him at all. And we've never had a full meeting of the board, except I think at Douglas's last wedding. He's had several of those. But the last time he was married, we were all joined together, but there was no time really to talk about Hickstead on that occasion.
But you like horses, clearly.
I like watching them, yes.
Yes.
I've only ever ridden cart horses at home on the farm, but my brother's keen on horses. He's just retired, and he's going to be a full-time, I think, on-course commentator at Point to Points, which he's been doing as a hobby for a long time all over the west of England. But Hickstead is my only connection with the equines.
Another little-known fact about you, I suspect, is that you were once a football reporter on one occasion.
Once only, yes. I wrote to BBC West, I think, when I was at Oxford, and said I would like to do football commentaries, and foolishly they sent me to report on Portsmouth versus Aston Villa. I think it was about only the second professional football game I'd seen, and I thought, being an impoverished student, that I could economise on the taxi allowance that they'd given me by sort of getting a bus from the ground to... But I didn't know Birmingham at all, and of course I couldn't find a bus going in the right direction or anything. Eventually, this mass of people coming away from the ground, I sort of opened one car door and said, BBC, are you going towards the studios? And they obviously thought I was Wilfred Pickles or Richard Dimbleby and said, get in. It took them about 100 yards to find that I was neither of these two famous people, and then they politely suggested that I get a bus just down the road, and I only just made it on time. Then I got everything mixed up and was never invited to be a football commentator again.
You are a farmer's son, as you said, from Somerset. How did a farmer's boy get into all this in the first place?
Well, I didn't like getting my hands dirty, so I got off the farm quite quickly. And mercifully, my brother, was quite happy to carry on the farm, so everybody, honour was equal there. And I wanted to go to Oxford, and my father said, what are you going to read, or what are you going to study, I think would be the phrase he used. And I thought history or English, and he thought that would only mean being a schoolmaster, and all farmers have a profound contempt of schoolmasters, so that was no good. So I then, fortunately, my grandfather, his father-in-law, was a solicitor, so I said I would read law, and he was rather afraid of his father-in-law, so he thought that was a very good idea. So that got me to Oxford, where I did some reviews, and I met a man in the Strand afterwards when I'd just passed bar exams, and he said, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm a barrister. And he said, well, we start ATV on next week. Why don't you come and join us? So I went and had lunch with him, and then met his boss, who said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm a barrister. And he said, well, I'm afraid we can only offer you a producer's job. So this is how to get into show business.
When you look back on it all tonight, that was the week that was, Side by Side by Sondheim, The Virgin Soldiers, and a million other things that you've done. What's given you the biggest kick? What do you look back on and say, that was it?
I think it's always the thing you're doing at the time. I mean, tonight was enormous fun. That was the week, came as a great surprise. And, we were very lucky because nobody had ever done that sort of thing on the television before. Beyond the Fringe and Private Eye and the establishment were doing it, but we were lucky enough to be able to do it to about 14 million people. Then The Virgin Soldiers was my first experience of movies. Don't really like movies. They aren't right for me. And then Side by Side was one's first chance of going on the stage. It suddenly was quite curious. You'd think at 7 o'clock in the evening, what should I do tonight? And you realise you had very little choice. And then, because you had to be at the theatre. Then we did it in America, which was nice. I thought it was all going terribly well in America. When came off stage one night and rushed off to have a drink, I think, and I fell over the steps coming down and landed up in the gutter. And people were still coming out of the Music Box Theatre where we were playing. A couple of lads whom I can only, in retrospect, describe as supercilious queens, looked down at me and said, funnier than anything she did on the stage. You see, but
That was the week that was, though. Must have been particularly satisfying because of the incredible number of people who are names now. I mean, Michael Crawford, I didn't realise.
He was in Not So Much Programme.
Not So Much Programme.
The follow-up. But no, it was nice because it's always fun to be preached against or to have questions asked in the House and that sort of thing.
Yes.
It's also very good because you get away from those rather niggling criticisms in the television critical page. You become an outrage on the front page. It was a wonderful picture of David Frost and me in the Daily Express, I remember, soon after we started, with a huge headline from David Lewin saying, "These guilty men must go." It's much better than just being criticised, isn't it?
You're a resilient chap, though, because, I mean, there have, in all the success, there have been one or two flops. I mean, there was a show called Ziegfeld. I mean,
yes, I've lost more money for poor old Harold Fielding than anybody else has lost for anybody in the history of the British theatre. My friend Alistair Beaton, who wrote it with me, is now working on the much troubled musical King, and he says that King makes Ziegfeld look like a highly professional, smooth and successful operation. So we wait to see.
When that happens, though, does it dent your confidence at all, or are you always this?
Well, it's one of the advantages of coming out of several doors, you know, because one goes on to the next thing. It was very nice. I fell out of Ziegfeld and into Geoffrey Bernard, and that couldn't have been a happier experience with O'Toole.
Mm. You're having a lot of fun with your radio programme, aren't you, at the moment, on Radio 4, Loose Ends? I mean, you clearly enjoy that.
It's great fun. We get lovely guests. I mean, last week we had Emo Phillips and Stephen Fry, and you don't really, it's like taking sweets from children, isn't it? If you have them to interview, they just do it for you.
It's a bit like interviewing you, actually. I mean, are there any unfulfilled ambitions? I mean, are there any things that you haven't yet done that you want to do?
I've never sort of really planned ahead. It's always what comes next. I mean, I'm looking forward enormously to doing a new play of Keith Waterhouse's, which we start at Brighton in October, starring Sir Michael Hordern. And I've only worked with Michael once on the radio before, but I've known him for a long time. And he's such a wonderful actor. He hasn't been in the theatre for about 10 years, and so that's very exciting. But I don't really like looking farther than that.
Do you get bored easily? I mean, once you've got a production on, such as the one you've now got on at the Nuffield, I mean, do you then sort of think, well, I've had enough of that?
Well, no, it's Judy Dench always says, since she started directing, you know, it's up and running, it's all in the actors' hands now. You go back and they don't want to know you. Judy would go round after she directed Much Ado and try and give Kenneth Branagh notes, and he'd be out of the theatre and in the pub by the time she got round, you know. Couldn't understand why she was quibbling about something.
Do you like actors? Do you feel at home with actors, or do you prefer journalists such as the chaps on Tonight, etc.?
No, they were a nice crew on Tonight, but I do love actors and just that whole thing of actors' stories and anecdotes and reminiscences. I'm doing a book of theatrical anecdotes at the moment. I thought I was due to deliver it next Christmas. Somebody rang me up in December last year and said I was due to deliver it last Christmas, but I'm afraid they didn't get it. I hope they'll get it in time for next Christmas.
In sort of 30 seconds or so, can you tell me your favourite anecdote from it?
Let's do, well, I suppose, a Noel Card one. Do you know the one about Noel Card? They're usually chestnuts with Noel, but when he was the godfather of Richard Olivier, Laurence Olivier's son, when they were living in Brighton, and he was taking the little boy for a walk along the front one day, and Richard looked down and saw two dogs making love in front of him. He looked up at Noel and said, "Uncle Noel, what are those two dogs doing?" And Coward said, "One of them is blind and the other is pushing him all the way to St Dunstan's."
Wonderful. Can I end, all three of you, where we started and fairly briefly get back to this lovely, lovely doll's house? If you had to choose a room to design, I wonder which one would it be? Cynthia Jacobs.
I think now I would go for a bathroom again. That bathroom was such fun to do, and I'd love a bathroom like that myself.
So a bathroom for you.
Bathroom for me.
Glynis Barber?
Well, I love sumptuous bathrooms as well, but I think I might go for a study because I always have papers. I'm terribly disorganised at home, and just the idea of having a room, like an office, you know, with books on the wall and places to put all the papers, I mean, that would be nice.
That would do you?
Yes.
And this is going to be fascinating. Ned Sherring, what would you go for and why?
I inherited from Carol Brahms a lot of very pretty glass walking sticks, which I used to decorate the hall. And I think if we had a hall decorated with glass walking sticks, that would give her a real problem to crack.
Next time around, perhaps.
We could do it.
Cynthia Jacobs, good luck with your fundraising. May you make a lot of money for the Sick Children's Trust. Glynis Barber, Ned Sherring, may you have a lot of success with your play and take it to the West End.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being such super guests, and we'll have more for you on Coast to Coast People next week. Until then, from us all, take good care of yourselves and bye-bye for now.